It was a bright, early Saturday morning when John Carter stepped out onto his front porch, coffee in hand. The sun shined through the trees, casting a warm glow on his neatly trimmed lawn. John, a retired veteran and proud father, loved this little slice of peace. His lawn wasn't just grass, it was a symbol of all his hard work and dedication. However, this morning brought an unexpected surprise. As he took a sip of his coffee, something caught his eye. A black sedan sat right in the middle of his lawn, a glaring blemish on his otherwise perfect scenery. "What on earth?" John muttered, rubbing his eyes as if the sight might disappear. But it was real. His heart sank. Who dared to park there? John felt his weekend's peace slip away as he put down his coffee and approached the car. The dusty windows and a dented bumper made it clear it wasn't a visitor's vehicle. John's stomach twisted as he noticed tire tracks tearing through the soft green grass. It looked like an invasion, an unwelcome guest on his cherished property. He knelt to inspect the damage, feeling his heart break with every blade of grass he touched. "Stay calm, John," he whispered to himself, standing up. It was time to figure out what was going on. He decided to talk to his neighbor, Mark, known for his rebellious attitude in the cul-de-sac. Mark lived 2 doors down and had a knack for getting on everyone's nerves. But there was no time to waste. John knocked firmly on Mark's door, his resolve steady. The door swung open, revealing Mark in a wrinkled t-shirt. The expression on Mark's face showed immediate irritation. "Yeah?" Mark grunted. "Good morning, Mark," John began, keeping his tone even. "I just noticed there's a car parked on my lawn. It didn't seem like a mistake. Is it yours?" Mark shrugged, crossing his arms. "Yeah, that's mine. What's the big deal? You've got all that space. Just let it go." John felt a wave of frustration bleeding into his calm demeanor. "Mark, it's about respect for each other's property." Mark grinned. "Respect? You make it sound like some big deal. It's just grass." Before John could respond, Mark stepped back and shut the door, leaving John standing there, stunned and furious. A storm of emotions raged inside him. This wasn't just a car on his lawn, it felt like a challenge, an insult to everything he valued. Over the next few days, John found it hard to focus. The sight of the black sedan haunted him. Each time he looked out his window, his anxiety grew. His lawn wasn't just damaged, it felt like a slice of his dignity was torn away too. To make matters worse, he observed the damage grow worse as Mark returned to park there again, this time with fast food wrappers and empty cans scattered across the lawn. It was an obvious act of defiance. Every day that passed saw John's patience wear thinner. Determined to restore his dignity, he decided to approach the HOA, a group meant to oversee neighborhood harmony. Surely, this would end Mark's antics. Walking into the HOA office brought a fresh wave of anxiety. Karen Hunt, the chairwoman, was known for her sharp tongue and dismissive attitude. John carefully explained his situation, only to receive a wave of her hand. "Come on, John. It's just grass. Can't we be reasonable? Neighbors should get along. Harmony is key, right?" Karen's feigned congeniality felt like salt in the wound. John stood rigid. "It's not just grass, Karen. It's about respect." But Karen only seemed bored. The meeting left him feeling invisible, like his concerns didn't matter at all. Frustrated but undeterred, John made his way home. He knew he had to escalate things. This wouldn't end peacefully without a stand. So, he came up with a plan. That night, John ordered security cameras online. If Mark wanted to challenge him, he would have irrefutable evidence. Over the next few days, he carefully installed the cameras, securing them in various spots to capture the angles of his lawn. He admired his handiwork, feeling like he finally had an edge against the chaos in his life. It wasn't long before Mark noticed the cameras. One morning, John spotted him lingering near his lawn, his expression full of mockery. "What's with the cameras, Carter?" Mark shouted, his voice filled with sarcasm. "You think you're some kind of detective now?" John took a deep breath, meeting Mark's gaze without flinching. "They're there to protect my property. If you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't worry." Mark scoffed and turned on his heel, clearly unfazed. John sensed it would only escalate, but he stayed resolute. Days passed, tensions rising, and then Karen called another emergency HOA meeting, summoning all residents to discuss the growing discord. As soon as John entered, he felt a chilling silence. Karen stood at the front, her expression stuck somewhere between irritation and unease. "It's crucial we maintain harmony in our community." Her gaze laser-focused on John when she spoke, her words barely masking her disdain for him. "We cannot allow disagreements to escalate like this." But the crowd was restless. Murmurs echoed through the room as neighbors glanced at one another, uncertainty growing. John sensed the tide changing. They were beginning to see through Karen's facade. "Excuse me, Karen," started Mrs. Patel, Mark's neighbor. "What about the broken street lights you ignored? Or the issues with the drainage?" The tension ignited. Suddenly, voices erupted. People began sharing their frustrations, bringing up complaints that had been dismissed for far too long. John couldn't believe his ears. The realization hit him. They were turning against her. Just as Karen began to regain her composure, the door swung open again, drawing all eyes. A young woman stepped in, strong and confident. "I'm here on behalf of several neighbors who are concerned about Karen's behavior." The room fell quiet, everyone captivated. "We've gathered evidence," she continued, her voice steady. "Karen has failed to do her job, and her favoritism stifles community involvement. It's time for change." John felt the adrenaline pulse through him. This was the moment. People began talking, sharing tales of neglect and apathy stemming from Karen's rule. John stood tall, listening intently as neighbors rallied around the idea of a new HOA, one that served them all. Days transformed into intense discussions, and flyers began circulating around the neighborhood, calling for support to hold a vote of no confidence against Karen. John's spirit soared as he saw his neighbors stand together, united for the first time.
On the day of the emergency election, the community center brimmed with excitement. Cheers and encouragement filled the air. When it was time for John to present his case, he felt a mix of fear and exhilaration like never before. "Thank you everyone for being here," John began. "We've endured enough. This isn't simply about my lawn, this is about our community's dignity and respect. We have a chance right now to reclaim our neighborhood." As he spoke, the crowd erupted into supportive cheers. Mark sat with arms crossed, a pouting expression plastered on his face, and Karen glared, frustration boiling beneath her surface. Votes were cast, and when the results came in, the entire room erupted into celebration. Karen was out, and the new board members pledged to uphold fairness and communication. But the victory didn't end there. Over the next few weeks, John watched as the community began to flourish. Illumination of streetlights flickered back to life, gardens were planted, and most importantly, the lawn that had been a battleground began to heal. With the help of the community, John spearheaded the effort to restore his property that had endured so much. Weekends were filled with laughter as neighbors banded together to help reseed the lawn and fill in the worn patches of grass. Young Jason, with his big ideas, suggested creating a neighborhood garden, a shared project for all. The idea spread like wildfire, igniting excitement. As the community garden flourished, so too did the friendships. John hosted barbecues, and old fears evaporated under the warm sun. Laughter echoed as families started to connect again, and the bond of respect and kindness replaced the previously fragmented relationships. Months turned into years, and the neighborhood transformed from a collection of houses into a close-knit community. People shared stories, held block parties, and even stood up for one another when new issues arose. John felt proud not just of his lawn, or his cameras that had provided evidence, but of the neighbors who had learned to stand together. One evening, sitting on his porch, John reflected. Watching children racing across his lush lawn, he realized that every battle he fought had helped foster a community spirit that would outlast any conflict. They had struggled, but they had also triumphed, transforming their neighborhood into an example of unity and strength. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, he felt at peace. His lawn was not just grass, it embodied resilience, community, and the triumph of standing together against adversity. And just like that, John knew that his story would be retold, a powerful reminder of what it means to fight for what is right and, more importantly, how change is possible when you stick together. Years went by, and John became a symbol of courage and resilience in the community. People would often come to him for advice, and he would share his story, inspiring others to stand up for what they believed in. The community continued to thrive, and John's lawn became a symbol of the power of community and the importance of standing together against adversity. One day, a young journalist came to the neighborhood to write a story about the community's transformation. She sat down with John on his porch, and he told her the entire story, from the moment he saw the black sedan on his lawn to the day the community came together to vote out Karen and create a new HOA. The journalist was impressed by John's story, and she wrote a powerful article about the community's transformation. The article was published in the local newspaper, and it quickly went viral. People from all over the city were inspired by John's story, and soon the community was receiving visitors from all over, who came to see the community garden and meet the people who had made it all possible. John's story had sparked a movement, and soon communities all over the city were coming together to create their own community gardens and stand up against adversity. John's lawn had become a symbol of hope and resilience, and he had become a hero to many. As John looked out at his lawn, he felt a sense of pride and satisfaction. He had fought for what he believed in, and he had won. But more importantly, he had inspired others to do the same, and that was the greatest reward of all. The story of John's lawn would be remembered for generations to come, a reminder of the power of community and the importance of standing together against adversity. And John, the man who had started it all, would always be remembered as a hero, a man who had fought for what he believed in and had made a difference in the lives of those around him. Years later, when John was old and gray, he would sit on his porch, surrounded by his family and friends, and he would tell the story of his lawn, of how it had brought the community together and had inspired a movement. And as he looked out at the lush green grass, he would smile, knowing that his legacy would live on, a reminder to future generations of the power of community and the importance of standing together against adversity. The story of John's lawn would never be forgotten, and it would continue to inspire people for generations to come. It was a story of hope and resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a way forward, and that with courage and determination, anything is possible. And so, the story of John's lawn came to an end, but its legacy would live on, a reminder to future generations of the power of community and the importance of standing together against adversity. It was a story that would be told and retold, a story that would inspire and motivate, a story that would never be forgotten.